Burma wasn't always under military rule. At one point, it was a British colony and it gained its independence in January of 1948. Burma's independence was gained because of Aung San and his cabinets, but before their independence was completely gained, Aung San and 6 of his cabinet members were assassinated. So after independence was gained, there was a void of experienced political leaders. The Karen ethnic group asked for independence from Burma was denied with armed resistance. Many of the other ethnic groups started fighting for independence. In March of 1962, Army Commander Ne Win led a military coup and took over the civilian government, turning the country's government into a military dictatorship. In 1986, a Huayklop refugee camp was established on the Thailand side. Between the years of 1996 and 1998, the camp was burned down 3 times, forcing its residents to move to the Umpian camp. On August 8, 1998, the first major demonstration happened. The police of Burma killed over 3,000 protesters in the streets of Rangoon. Aung San Suu Kyi, the daughter of Aung San, Burma's independence hero, created an opposing political group, the National League for Democratic Party. In the following year of 1989, Aung San Suu Kyi was put under house arrest for 6 years. A big step for Burma happened in 1990, their first election. And even though Aung San Suu Kyi's party and the LDP party won by landslide, the government refused to hand over power to the winners. In 1995, Mano Pla, a refugee camp and home of the KNU headquarters, was overrun by the SPDC, military junta. Aung San Suu Kyi was released after being under house arrest for 6 years. The SPDC shut down all the universities due to anti-government protests in 1996. In 2000, students were allowed to return to their studies, but with re-entering, loyalty pledges were a necessity, and also no political activity had to be promised. In 2002, 32 political prisoners were released. 2004 was the year that Sudanese democracy leader Min Ko Nang was released, along with 3,937 inmates. Min Ko Nang was the nation's number 2 political prisoner. Also, the ruling military acknowledged that they target the Karen. The offense is needed to keep bombings and anti-government attacks from happening, they said. The next major events happened in 2007. A week of protests by Buddhist monks started on September 18th. The population of the protest was started at 2,000 monks. And on the 24th of September, 100,000 protesters led by phalanx monks marched through Yangon. The protest had grown in a week of faltering demonstrations to one rivaling the failed 1988 uprising. Disaster and tragedy hit Myanmar in 2008. Cyclone Nargis hit Rangoon, and at last count, 130,000 were either dead or missing. One big mistake that the military government made was not allowing foreign aid workers into the country until about 20 days after the cyclone. The mention of the 2010 elections also happened throughout this year. Throughout 2009, Aung San Suu Kyi was charged for breaking the terms of her house arrest after an American snuck into her lakeside home. In her trial, she blamed the military for not protecting her home properly. Now to something a little more present. The 2010 elections. The first elections in 20 years. And the main military-backed party came out victorious. The Union Solidarity and Development Party. The opposition groups claimed that it was a fraud and condemned it as a sham. The junta says this is a transition from military dictatorship to civilian government, but this new civilian government has refused to let the political prisoners go and keeps arresting others. No real change has happened in Burma. Now I will read a few stories from 9,000 Nights, a book on Burmese refugees. The first one is called Huayklop, Destroyed, by L.B. We entered Huayklop refugee camp near Mesop the morning after it had been attacked by the Democratic Karen Buddhist Army, the DKBA, in 1998. It was mostly emptied of its thousands of Karen refugees. The air was still thick with smoke and the ground was covered in ash. A few huts remained, so we walked towards one of them and found a lone woman rummaging in the remains of her home. She burst into tears after she found her rice pot had a hole in it from a piece of shrapnel. She explained to us that this was the most important item for the house, and this had kept her family alive. The cooking pot was the straw that had broken the camel's back.